didn't do the word countdown thing, but okay, well, hopefully it's working. All right, so we're going to start with list and elements, okay? And we're going to do this together as we did before, so that you guys will hopefully have a better understanding about what this is. Lists and elements are extremely important in coding because it does simplify your coding and it helps make things a little bit more organized versus where you guys have all those lists of things like that you had, because you're going to work on your combo menu again in this one, all right? So it's going to help put your items and understand how lists work and how to pull from those lists versus you going like, if this, if that, all, that's all, because that's all you know, and that's fine. That's fine. You used a lot of conditional statements and booleans and things like that, which is totally fine because that's what you know right now. This is going to help you be a little bit more advanced in your coding and help you simplify your coding a little bit. So, okay. All right. So we're going to learn to manipulate, create, manipulate, and access lists in Python. Develop and test using tracer rounds, and then we're going to work together on this. So pair programming. So we're going to work together. All right. So we're going to revisit your combo menu and modify the program from the previous activity to create a list for each order placed and store it to be accessed later. All right. So things you need to think about on this is, why do conditional statements always have to only have two outcomes, such as yes or no or true or false? Why is computer science considered a form of art? Well, I can tell you, everyone here did something artistic because it's pretty artsy to get through that. It's like a puzzle, like putting together puzzle pieces and trying to figure out where each little piece goes. And what are some essential operations you do over and over with lists or collections? So essential operations would be what? Think about what your essential operations would be. Any ideas? What are operations? Plus, minus, equal signs, greater than, equal to? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, and then a resource for you all that as we go is our debugging guide. Noah, you need to get to 3.2.1. So here's a debugging guide that I would totally use if I were you, just to make sure if you have any issues or any concerns while you're doing this, okay? So anyway. Okay, so lists and classes. I'm gonna get up here because I can write on the board over here. So lists and classes, a list object, which you need to know this, okay? A list object, you need to know what those are. List object is a collection of data values. As you have seen previously, lists are useful whenever you want to manage several pieces or collections of related data. The individual values can be added, removed, or changed. Each individual entry is in a list called an element. Okay, so it has a specific identifying index number that is based on the position in the list. So if I have a list, which is going to look like this, okay, and then I had, okay, so this is the list object, okay, and then these are the elements inside the list, okay, so you have the square brackets, you have the stuff inside the list, the stuff inside the list of the square brackets is going to be your elements, or are going to be your elements. Wow, I can't even do English today. Does that make sense? Okay. So one thing you might want to note is we did this in MIT App Inventor a little bit, and then MIT App Inventor, their first index number was 1. Okay. Python is 0. Okay, and what that means is, so these are indexed. So pretend, actually, let's do this. Pretend that there are boxes above each one of these. Okay? And there's boxes above each element in the list. Okay? In those boxes, we are putting, this is how the computer numbers each one of these in this box, or in each one of these elements. Okay? Python starts at 0. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Whereas MIT App Inventor started with 1. Okay? So if I asked you to find something what was index 3, what would that be? The 4. Okay? If I said find something at index 0, what would that be? The 1. Okay? So your indexes are how you are going to find the elements in your list. So when we do coding, okay? So when we code, you're going to use this information, kind of like, I wish that you guys were young enough to know card catalogs. Have anyone ever heard of a card catalog for a library? No. Okay. So this is like a filing system. Okay, you know what a filing system is, right? This is like a filing system the computer uses. Okay. This is how the computer files the information in the list. Okay. So you're not going to actually say, find me the number 3, because if you say, find me the number 3, it's going to give you what? 4. Okay? So keep that in mind. You're going to search, set up your program to search by element, by indexes, not by element. Okay? That's one thing that people mess up on a lot when you're doing lists. So you're not searching for the elements, you're searching for the index. Okay? All right, in Python, you can create a list of any type of variable, such as strings, integer, booleans, and floats. Each item in the list is called an element. You can create a list in Python using brackets, the square brackets, and separate each element with a comma. Okay, so these are a list of, this is a list of lists. Hey. So if I was to type in, let's do this first. How many elements are in each of these lists? So in string lists, how many elements are in the string list? How many elements, guys? I heard you two. How many elements? How many, guys? Just say it. How many elements are in this list? You guys need to speak up. You guys look afraid. Huh? There's 4. W is an element, OR is an element, L is an element, and D is an element. D exclamation point is an element. Okay? What is in here? What is inside the brackets? Inside the brackets are elements. Okay? This whole thing is a list. And then that is the indexes. Okay? All right, so how many elements? So we have an integer list. So how many are in our integer list? 6. Very good. Float list. Now, the back row, what do y'all say? 3. Very good. Boolean list. How many are in that one? 5. I want everyone to say it. Mixed list. 4. An empty list. 0. Very good. Very good. You guys can mark this in your book because you will turn this in. This is the stuff you're going to turn in. The stuff that we do together is the stuff that you're going to take screenshots of and save, and you're going to turn in. Okay? So you want to type in the boxes so that you have something to turn in. And then we check our answer, and we were right. Okay? Let me do those real quick. Okay, everyone got that done? Everyone got their answers in? All right. Make sure you screenshot that and put that in your file so that you can turn that into me later. All right. So take a moment to predict how you think each of the lists would appear if they were printed. All right. Add print statements to the code so you can see lists that will be returned and where your guess is correct. So let's guess. I'll put the print statements in here, and you guys can follow along too. But if I said print string list what am I going to see? How is that going to, don't cheat. How is it going to print out? How is it going to print out? It's going to do what? So how is it going to print? Yes, it will actually print. What it's going to do is it's actually going to print the entire string with, the entire, it won't put the words, it's not going to put it together. It's actually going to print it the way it looks right there on the screen. Okay. So you'll have your square brackets around it. What about print int list? What about that one? So it's going to print the square bracket and the 5s and the comma and the 15 comma. Okay. We'll see if we're right here in a minute. What about if y'all haven't cheated yet? I hope not, because that's no fun. What about float list? Okay. Then Boolean list. You guys can just tell me while I'm typing. And brackets and what's the empty list going to do? Okay. You guys ready? There you go. So it prints out the brackets along with it because we did not give it an index to look for. Okay. We didn't give it anything to look for. So it's going to print out the entire list as it's shown in the code. Okay. So if we just say print list, it's going to print the list as it shows in your code. It's not going to take an index and put them all together. Does that make sense? So in order for it to put it together, you have to be very specific about that. All right. And so again, I want you to screenshot this also, and then we will keep going. Okay. So the code in the mix, see the code in the mix list. Okay. So tell me what kind of data types we have here. We have a string. So hello is a string. And then we have what? We have an integer. Another string. And the list. Right. So you can have, and we'll check our answer. See, looky there. So each of those is an element, and you can have mixed elements inside your list. Okay, that's another great thing about a list is that, when you do the if then statements, then you have to pretty much stick to either an integer or a string when you're doing that, right? However, on a mixed list or any kind of list that you design, you can have mixes of different data types. So therefore, if you were going to say if, this or, the list index number is this, then do that, instead of making things more, maybe 500 lines of code. Okay. So, and this will make more sense as we go along, but just remember in a list, you can have multiple different types of elements. It doesn't have to be the same. Like it doesn't have to all be a string or all be integers or all be a float. It can be all different types of things in a list. You guys with me? Okay. All right. Although in Python, and this is something that as a programmer, you'll notice this later on. In Python, you are able to create lists that contain several different data types. It is more typical to have lists that contain only one data type. The great thing about lists is that you can store a lot of similar data into one variable, rather than creating different variables. In the next section of this activity, you will learn how to access elements from a list. Okay, so if you notice, it's calling the list a variable. And what's the variable? Huh? What's a variable? Stores information. It's a piece of data that stores information. So if I was to call this, so if I gave numbers the value of this list here, even though this is technically a list, it's also a variable. Okay, so this variable here is now holding all of this information here. Okay, you guys with me?
Yeah.
You kind of, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I had a confused look back there for a second. We good over here?
I just confused a lot.
Huh?
I look confused a lot. Just confused.
Whatever. So, again, you're not, even though it may say, and this is how, and when you write your code, it is very beneficial for you if you're going to have multiple variables, okay? To have, like if you have numbers, so if you have a list of numbers, then I would highly suggest that you use the underscore and make a number underscore list, okay? When you're creating your variables, because if you have other variables, because you can use numbers somewhere else. You know, you could use numbers somewhere else in your code as an actual variable, okay? But if you're creating a list, then I would always put the underscore list behind it. That is highly suggested. Now, you don't have to, but from a programming perspective, this is how you need to do it, okay? So whatever your variable, whatever you want to name it, and then underscore list. Good? Okay. All right. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. All right. So we talked about this. Each element in your list has a specific position known as an index. So we talked about that. The indexes are our coding system or our filing system. The index comes from the order of elements, and the order of elements fall on the list. So each item has a unique index number. In Python, the index, the first index, the location of the first element in a list is 0. So as I put up there on the board, you can see how it starts with 0 up there. All right. So the code below accesses the first element of the list food and sets it equal to. I can't believe they said equal to. Sets it to the value of variable first underscore menu underscore item. Okay. So how would you? So see, this is how. All right. Let me get. I gotta get some water. We talk too much. Okay. So. All right. We have our list. Okay. We have our food, which I wish it would say food underscore list, but it doesn't. But variable, our variable is food, right? Okay. Inside of our variable food, we have our list. Okay? Everyone understands that, right? The list is always surrounded by square brackets. Square brackets. Okay. So if we want to have the first menu item to be assigned the value of food 0, what's it going to be assigned? Okay, this is our elements, looking for our index right here. This is our index. This is how we bring up an index. Oh, I'm moving. Did I move it to a different one?
Yeah.
Let's see. Nope, I didn't. No, really, I didn't. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. So if I had, so my element, there's my element, my list variable food with my list inside of it with my elements of burger, shake, and fries. Okay. Everyone has those terms in their head, right? You're not writing things down, so I'm helping you remember stuff. Okay. The first menu item is another variable that this code has created. All right. It is going to be assigned the value of food with the index of 0. That's how you create an index right there, okay? So if I am, hang on a second. Okay, so I have food, assign the value of burger. Oh my gosh, I cannot write or type or anything today. Shake, fries, and then food, or first, what is it, first menu item?
Yeah. Wouldn't it print burgers located in index zero?
So we're gonna assign, the way that we tell it to pull from our list, this is the way that we tell it to pull from our list. Okay? So these, even though these are words, these are always going to be indexed by numbers. Does that make sense? Even though these are string, these are always going to be indexed by numbers. Yes, no?
Wouldn't it print burgers located at index zero?
Burgers is located at index 0, yes. So this would be changed because we would do food index 0, so this is 0. Okay, so this would be burgers. Okay? So then our first menu item would be changed and assigned to burgers. Okay, because it told us to go look at the food list and find index 0. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right, so if we, so then it would print, yes, it would print burger is, what does that say, is located at index 0?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, it would print, this is what it would, this would be the output. Okay? Now, what would happen if, and y'all need to, I mean, you can type it in there, but don't hit run. So if we were to change this to 2, what would that be?
Fries is located.
Right. So then we would have fries. Okay, and then it would print out our same thing with fries. Okay, what about 1? It would be shake. Okay, so this is not too hard, right?
Yeah.
All right.
That's pretty easy.
Okay, so just remember, it's the brackets, okay? This is the one thing I used to always forget when I first started coding. I would still put parentheses around the 0 and it would give me some weird funky thing. Okay, so make sure that you understand that when you're pulling from a list, and asking for an index number from a list, that you are using the brackets and not parentheses, okay? That's something that needs to be remembered. All right, so and then, so we got this, and we got this, we did those two. So as mentioned before, lists help a programmer reduce the number of variables used to write a program. So creating the variable first menu item defeats the purpose of the list. So delete first menu item equals food, has the value of food index 0, and instead use food index 0 with the print function. Okay, so what that means is it's asking you to, we're going to erase this right here, because like it says, the idea of a list is to decrease our code, right? Is to decrease our variables so we don't have to go back and find so many, right? So what it's telling us to do is to just do print food index 0. Okay? Or you can also do, since we're wanting to take rid of, if we're doing the entire sentence, what we would do is we would do food index 0, and then comma is located at index 0. what that did is it just took away a line of code. Okay, 499 is better than 500. No, just kidding. Okay, does that make sense? So you're replacing the variable of first menu item with food 0, which is going to tell you the same thing, right? Because all it's going to pull and it's going to say burger when you print it. So try that out on your screen. And then when you do, I want you to save it, and then that's what goes into me. So you're going to erase or get rid of line 3 and just keep line 5. But you're going to change first menu item to food bracket 0. Is it working? Is it working? No. What I have? No. What is it not working? Oh, I didn't have a comma. Don't forget your comma. So it should look like that when you print it. Okay? So that's a lot easier than saying, if this is this, then print that, right? So we can just pull an index and have a list and be done. Okay? And lots less code. I'm teasing you. You both had like massive amounts of code on yours, so you just had 500 and Jazz had like 300. So I thought you're the coding queen. That's why I thought you got coding. Yeah. Like, so, all right. So add code to print the second and third menu items. So I want you to print. So I want you to do the rest of those, and then I want you to do a screenshot of that so that you can save it and print and send it to me. So us doing this stuff together, is this helping you guys understand all this better? Okay, just check. Especially if you still get the points for the project. Yeah. Okay, so let's think about this. So the next question that we have is, what would happen if you tried to access an element that isn't on the list? So it's asking us to add the following statement. So let's print food bracket 3, not squigglies, bracket 3, comma, is located at index. Okay, so what happens? Right, it's going to tell us, oops, there's nothing at index 3. So we don't have an index 3. So it's going to tell you that, no, it does not exist. Okay, so that's the error message that you're going to get, that it's out of range. Okay, so if you cannot figure out what you did wrong, it's probably because you put the wrong index number. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So what would happen if you tried to access an element at a negative index? So let's add this following state. I'm just going to copy this one instead of printing it all out. Let's add this one onto there. I can get it highlighted. What do you think is going to happen? Anybody? Huh? It's gonna work. Why is it gonna work? Okay. Okay. So, did you notice what it did? It took the last element. Why did it do that? Overflow. So it does go back and it checks the it does check the back end of it. So it reverses itself. Okay. So not all programming language will allow a negative number as an index. Anytime you want a new programming language, it just has to have the limitations. So what it does is you can look at it this way. And if I put like -2, yeah, so it just turns itself around. So you have 0, 1, 2, then you have -1, -2, -3. Because it's basically, think about it as a circle. Okay? Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So think of this as a circle. Now, me personally, I'm just going to use the positive numbers because I don't want to type in a negative sign. Okay, that's one less typing thing that I have to do, right? But if you want to get funky and creative, there you go. Okay? So, but just think of it as going in a circle. So if you have 0, 1, 2, then you're going to have -1, -2, -3. Okay? All right. Okay. So sorry, I'm putting on my pen. Let's see. Another useful thing you can do with lists is to see whether a certain value is contained in the list. You may use Boolean operators to check what is included or not included in a list. Okay, based on what you have learned in other units, you could try something like this. If Sunday in food, then print 1 Sunday coming up. Or if, sorry, we don't carry Sundays. Okay, so if you were to have a list, like we have our burger, shakes, and fries, okay? And now we've got an if conditional that is asking us, that is telling us that if Sunday is in food, then we're going to say 1 Sunday coming up. Because what it's doing is it's telling the program, and the algorithm here is telling it to go look in the list food. Okay? You guys with me? Okay, it's telling it to go look in the list food. Okay, which is our food list here, right? So what's it going to print if we have this? What's it going to print if we have this as a list and it's telling us this? It's asking us this. What's it going to print? Which one is it going to do? Sorry, we don't carry Sunday. Right. Sorry, we don't carry Sundays because it's not in our food list.
Does that mean they carry Mondays?
Okay, and we get out of here at 11:35, don't we? Ah. Okay. So we'll stop there. Remember that we stopped there. Please, somebody. Somebody remember that we stopped there.